The views and opinions expressed on More Peace, Please are those of the host and her guest. The information presented is strictly for general information purposes
So,
only.
in the literal sense of consuming alcohol mindfully, it's going to help keep your nervous system in check by stopping when you know you need to stop. Or if you're a person that's particularly sensitive to alcohol, trying to reduce consumption and drink enough
Welcome
water.
to More Peace, Please, because sometimes we just have to ask for more peace. Please. On this podcast, my guests and I will discuss different ways to access peace, while also acknowledging how difficult peace can be to obtain and maintain. I am your host, Dominique Davis, also known as Brown and Bindi, trauma-informed yoga teacher and practitioner, weekend musician, and content creator. Welcome to my little corner of the internet. We're all friends here, so kick off your shoes, relax your feet, and let's just see if we can ask for a little more peace. Please. Hi, welcome back to the podcast. I hope that you're having an awesome week. Before we get back into More Peace, Please, finding peace in mindful consumption with our guest Verity, I wanted to discuss something that is important about this conversation. And that is understanding how to balance pleasure and the pursuit of pleasure with wellness. I believe that balance begins with learning how to identify the things that bring you joy. Being able to even list out what makes you as a person happy. For example, what brings me joy is talking on the phone with my friends or making tea and coffee. Actually, making tea and coffee is my love language. I make a killer chai. If I ever have you over, I will make you one. I also love writing music. I love listening to music. All the things that I just mentioned give me the warm, fuzzy feeling that I am often unintentionally chasing. I think that when it comes to intentionally pursuing pleasure, there has to be an awareness that pleasure is not unobtainable. I believe that we just begin to fall into illusions that pleasure is hard to obtain, or we can only obtain pleasure in one very specific way. And then we start to ignore all the other access points in our lives that give us the ability to access the very feelings that we chase, oftentimes chasing pleasure in ways that don't ultimately serve us as individuals. Last week we discussed fasting, and when I fast, whether that is specifically from solid food or whether it's from spending or eating sugar or being on a social media fast, I find that my brain starts to experience dopamine withdrawals. Dopamine is the hormone associated with the feel-good transmitter in our brain. It contributes to our pleasure and satisfaction because it is part of our brain's reward system. When I fast, my brain begins to crave the dopamine that I usually get from whatever I am fasting from. The best example, I think, for a lot of us can be social media. When I delete the app from off my phone, whether that's Instagram or, well, Instagram is really the only social media I use. Follow me at Brown and Bindi. Or whether that's Facebook. I am also on Facebook. When I delete those apps and then a couple hours later, my routine is thrown off because I no longer am consistently checking in on my little black square that I keep in my back pocket all the time. My brain is like, hey, wait, I used to be able to reach for that black square in order, or that black rectangle in order to feel a specific feeling. But now I don't have that. So what are we going to do about it? Am I going to sit here and am I going to tweak out? Am I going to sit here and just be really uncomfortable and then experience the mood shifts that come from dopamine withdrawals? Because that's a very real thing. So how can we consciously step away from the things that may not serve us whether that's permanently or whether it's just for a season, and still find daily joy without those things. In order to curb my own personal dopamine withdrawals, I find myself, and this is going to sound so silly and it's going to sound so obvious, but I spend time doing the things that I love, that joy list that I mentioned earlier. I'm going to put a pin right here and encourage you to create a joy list. What are 5 things that you can do, 5 activities that you can partake in that will ultimately bring you joy? What makes you happiest? Write it down so that you can reference it. I'm going to ask you about it next week on my socials. So make sure you're following me. But anyway, going back to that joy list, what I do to curb the dopamine withdrawal is I take my time doing the things that are on my joy list. And what I mean by taking the time is exactly what I'm saying. Taking the time, taking the event and wringing it dry, wringing all the joy that I can get from that event like a wet towel. Earlier, I said that one thing that brought me joy was conversations with my friends. So a lot of times those conversations are very passive. A lot of times those conversations are calling, catching up, laughing, enjoying each other's company. But if I am specifically seeking more dopamine in my life, during those conversations, I will intentionally be more present. While my friend is speaking, I will take the time to tune into how I feel when they're speaking to me, the glorious celebration of friendship that I'm experiencing in the conversation, how much joy the tone of their voice brings me. Another example is if I'm making my matcha, I do it so often that it has actually become like automatic movement. I can probably do it with my eyes closed. But again, if I'm seeking more peace, if I'm seeking excitement and a feeling of, again, just how else can I say pleasure from making this cup of matcha, I tap in. I become super present in the measurement of the matcha powder that I am using. I really enjoy, it's so satisfying pouring the matcha over the ice and then pouring the milk into the matcha and the beautiful swirl of the white and green that is created. It's truly a masterpiece. If you make any type of coffee, matcha, or like chai latte, you understand that when you pour that milk in, it is almost a religious experience. Honestly, I even feel like I have a cheat code because I really enjoy creating music. So when I start to really miss whatever I'm fasting from, all I have to do is sit at my piano and start to write a song. And before I know it, 3 hours has gone by and I forgot what I was even craving. Understanding what I find pleasure in has given me my power back. I am no longer desperate for pleasure because God has blessed me with a life abundant in pleasure. God has blessed you with a life abundant in pleasure. I know that I will experience pleasure in the majority of the things that I do throughout my day, so I'm not approaching life as if pleasure is scarce. This makes it easier for me to prioritize my wellness. Just because an experience brings me pleasure doesn't necessarily mean that it is good for me. If I decide I need to cool it on the social media, I have the option of spending more time going to coffee with my friends. If it's time for me to fast from spending money, I can shift my energy into expanding the experience I'm having in my home, whether that's with my family or whether it's just sitting reading a book. There is no one thing I need to feel pleasure. And mindful consumption keeps me aware of this fact. Okay. Enough ramblings. Let's get back into our conversation with Invino Verity as we continue to discuss finding peace in mindful consumption.
And a thought I just had about, being a chaotic person, and the action of serving and enjoying wine. I also think the action of serving and enjoying wine is an opportunity for peace as well. Because as a professional, if I'm needing to examine a wine, like let's say I've been given a sample of something, a winemaker has come to the restaurant and says, I want you to carry my wine. I have to take time. I have to take several minutes to open. I have to pour. I have to examine and taste the wine. And if I'm not focused, if my brain is all over the place, then I'm not paying attention to what's being served to me, what's in the glass.
Yes.
And it is, you've probably seen it in movies or on TV shows of the pretentious, you're swirling the glass, you're sniffing it, you're taking notes, you're tasting, you're gurgling it in your mouth. And it sounds ridiculous, but actually there's a reason for all of those steps taking place. And it's because the wine has a lot to tell you, and you have to be in a space to receive it.
You got to be listening. You got to have those ears open.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. There's just so much goodness in everything that you said. I do want to clarify something that I said earlier in reference to being a chaotic person. You guys, I'm a chaotic person. I'm sure at some point Verity can attest to also being a chaotic person.
Yes, I think we've seen each other at some of the best and some of the worst.
My God. But it's more peace, please. This podcast is not about showing up as the finished version of yourself. Understand that every perspective that I am speaking from when speaking to these amazing guests is the opportunity for you as a listener to better understand how to navigate your internal state, because a lot of us have things that we want to do. Some of us out there might want to become sommeliers, but we have a lot of things going on in our lives where we don't even understand how we can make space for anything that calm and that requires so much stillness. So if you take anything away from the conversation thus far, I hope that you will have the ability over time to better understand how to find that within yourself, and you are capable of cultivating that in yourself. And also, jobs are not 24/7. There is so much value in understanding that even if we are chaotic people, there is a practice to controlling our internal state for certain amounts of time so that we can perform certain objectives and do the things that work towards whatever careers we may like or whatever path we want to walk down. I just want to take a little bit of time to clarify all of that.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Yeah. Okay. So do you think that there is a difference between passively consuming wine and actively experiencing wine?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I do have to recognize that I have made the choice to make wine my job. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of impossible for me to fully, I don't have to be fully passive. I don't know if that's the right way to say it. I am pretty activated all of the time when I'm enjoying wine. But I would say when I'm working, when I'm on the clock, tasting a wine, making sure the wine is good enough to serve to my guests, that is a very, very active thing. And when you're training as a professional, as I said before, there are steps that you have to follow. There's a system that I have learned to tasting wine. So, I mean, I have a cup of water in front of me. And so I just went to the tap, poured it, and now I'm drinking it to hydrate myself. That's pretty passive consumption. I'm doing it because I need it to live, but I'm not taking the time to smell my water and see if I can, if this water is telling me anything of the provenance of where this water came from, for example. So for me personally, when I'm actively experiencing wine, it is an exhaustive activity. So people joke, my boyfriend and I are both professional sommeliers. We both work in wine, and people like to joke, oh, wow, you just sit around and drink wine all day? That sounds really hard. And yes, it's a very luxurious and fun job, but think about it. When I was studying for my latest sommelier exam, over the course of 3 days, I tasted more than 40 wines.
Wow.
And think about when you're eating something or smelling something. Let's say I think a good example would be is if you're at a perfume counter and you're trying to pick a perfume or a cologne to buy for someone, you get really tired really fast just from smelling things. Now do that times 40 and I'm having to take exhaustive notes
Mhm.
and compare them with my colleagues to see to calibrate myself to know what this wine is saying to me. So it is a very active and exhaustive procedure. But if I'm out with friends and we order a bottle, sure, the first couple of sips, we're all, we all enjoy food and wine. So I'll be first couple of sips, make sure everybody likes the bottle that we chose to share with the table. And then after that, it's pretty passive,
Yeah.
right?
When it comes to passively consuming wine, I've often struggled with
Mm-hmm.
learning to say that's enough, because a lot of times when you're doing something passively, you kind of miss the goalpost of, hey, your brain says like that's enough, we can stop now, because
Mm-hmm.
your mind is taken up by other sources of stimulus. So
Mm-hmm.
after one drink, I've learned to check in and ask myself, like, how am I doing? And giving myself permission to say, okay, well, I'm good. I'm not going to finish this cup. I'm good. I'm not going to finish this bottle. I don't know how you feel about it, but I will put a bottle in the refrigerator.
No problems there. Absolutely
Yeah.
no problems. Just don't
So,
pour it down the drain. That
oh
makes me
gosh.
sad.
Oh yeah, no, never that, never that.
No.
What are some questions that you ask yourself about alcohol while you're consuming it that keep you present if you're choosing to be present?
Sure. I think the example you gave is really good of paying attention to how much is in your glass or your cup. And after you've completed a drink, I feel like it's a little bit easier to do that with like cocktails or a
Mhm,
beer
mhm.
because the serving sizes are more singular. So
Yeah,
it's easier to be like, oh, another round, guys. Yeah, let's get another round of beers, or I'm just going to stick with one cocktail. But
absolutely.
with wine, there is a little bit of an end date or an ending because the bottle does finish after 5 glasses. So the average wine bottle has 5 servings of wine in it. So for me and my boyfriend, one bottle of wine will get us through a dinner. So, and I'm used to my tolerance. I'm used to having 2.5 glasses of wine in an evening, and that's good for me.
Mhm.
So for us, knowing, okay, this bottle is finished. Do we want to open another one and continue the conversation we're having? And in that case, it's active. We're deciding together, yeah, let's open another bottle and taste something new. I think your recommendation of storing wine and we didn't finish this bottle, so let's stick it in the fridge and then have it tomorrow. That's great. And I'm a big supporter of that. There are a number of systems where, if you're a big wine drinker, there are the expensive systems you can buy to store your wine for longer, or you can just stick the cork back in it, honey, and that's fine.
No judgment here.
No judgment here, none at all. And I think that's great for mindful consumption.
Yeah.
Also, I'm really intentional when I'm at work, and for drinking wine is literally a part of my job. Okay, so I'll show up to work, so maybe like 11 in the morning or 4 in the afternoon, and I have to drink some wine. As a professional, I spit it out.
Yeah.
So that is something that we do as professionals. And the reason we do it is so that for me personally, I do it so that I don't get drunk.
Yeah.
And also so that I can keep my palate a little more fresh to enjoy what I'm having.
I imagine,
Um,
because your taste buds, weird question, but your taste buds, they go pretty far back. So if you actually swallow it, then
mhm.
I imagine that messes with your palate.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, your taste buds do go back, and it's kind of like it's another skill, kind of like juggling
Mhm,
that we have to
mhm,
learn. Is like, okay, how am I getting enough wine in my mouth? Am I swirling it around sufficiently, getting it far enough to coat my whole mouth, so that all of my taste buds can be activated, and I can make an assessment of this wine. And it is true, you miss out on some of that. Often, it's a little bit harder to detect, like the alcohol level of a wine
if you don't
because if a
swallow it.
wine has more alcohol in it, yeah, it's going to burn your throat. You're going to feel that kind of burning sensation.
Yeah.
So there are some drawbacks to that actually when professionally assessing a wine, but we
You got
need
to
to,
do what you, yeah.
yeah, we need to be professional. We need to be
Yeah.
professional. So
So
we do what we must.
when it comes to the topic of passively and actively consuming wine, as you guys heard Verity mention, we did go to college together. And
Mm-hmm.
when I think about college, I think of how drinking was just so passive, to the point where, like, after a certain amount of time, You find a drink, you drink it, someone hands you a drink, you drink it. And by the time you know it, the night is over and you might be in a state that does not serve you so much.
Yeah.
So over time, especially with my body and my health, I think I'm not sure if I ever talked to you about this, but
Hmm.
I was diagnosed with MS maybe about 10 years ago, and I haven't had symptoms in about 9 years. No,
That's amazing.
7 years. I haven't had symptoms in about 7 years because I stopped having symptoms when AJ was born. But my flare up started when I I would what would I drink? I would drink Red Blend by Barefoot. That would
Huh.
always give me flare ups, just that specific type. And that is no shade against the brand or anything. It's definitely my genetics and like blah, blah, blah. But
Hmm.
that was the time when I realized that, okay, I have to start being very active about what I put into my body. Alcohol was a part of that, but diet and food and all that was also,
Hmm.
you know. But that being said, I'm grateful that I was able to find a time and place to say to myself, okay, what do I want my alcohol consumption to look like going forward? Because I was diagnosed at 22. So I knew that I was not going to stop drinking, period. But I was able to make a mindful choice of how would I like this to look? So, my next question to you is why is mindful consumption important? And how does mindful consumption help a person find peace?
Yeah, this is a really important conversation and a really important thing I think that we're about to discuss. So, as a professional, I am very aware and trained to know that wine contains alcohol, obviously, and alcohol
Really?
isn't an yeah, isn't that crazy?
I had no
Right? It's
idea.
just and it's natural. All wine is natural, okay? And it's not just a buzzword. All wine is natural. The alcohol is natural. It's coming from nature. It's a part of this natural process. But unfortunately, in the human body, alcohol is an intoxicant. It's a depressant. And so it messes with your nervous system. Even
Mm,
one drink can mess with you. And there have been a lot of studies that have come out recently about alcohol and the effects on the body. And so it's something I'm keenly aware of. When I'm serving people, I'm very aware of it. I haven't had to cut anyone off yet, but I'm aware that that's something that I might have to do for the safety of the person in front of me and also the safety of me and my colleagues at work. So in the literal sense of consuming alcohol mindfully, it's going to help keep your nervous system in check. So if by stopping when you know you need to stop, or if you're a person that's particularly sensitive to alcohol, trying to reduce consumption and drink enough water and eat
mhm,
enough so
mhm.
that your body can metabolize the alcohol properly. Because I don't know if you've experienced this, but I certainly have, where if I've maybe had a little bit more to drink than normal, I'll go to sleep and fall asleep so fast.
Mhm.
But then I wake up in the middle of the night and I can't go back to sleep. And I'm not a neurologist. I don't know all of the reasons for that. But in some of the research I have done, I do know that, okay, when you put this depressant in your body, your brain is trying to activate and try to get you, trying to get you back to that equilibrium. And so your cortisol might be increased, or your adrenaline or the other kind of stimulation hormones might be increased.
Yes.
And so that might be why I'm waking up in the middle of the night. I don't know. And I've experienced this, and I have a dear friend who experiences this often, where if she's had a night out partying, the next day her anxiety is on overdrive and she feels bad. And
Mm,
it's just something that she has to be aware of. And, as a friend supporting her, she knows that if she's having a rough day after a night of partying, she can come to my house and we can hang out together. But
yes.
also being mindful and knowing, okay, if I'm not in a mood to party and I'm not feeling safe to party, when do I need to stop so that I can take care of myself and be
Feeling
mindful?
safe, feeling safe.
Yeah.
So we might have to do a part two because I am currently in a trauma informed teacher training so that my yoga teaching can lean more towards helping those who are focused on regulating. And what you touched on two things, feeling safe and how at times when you drink too late, when you wake up, you can't go back to sleep. And I'm currently studying the complexity within the nervous system, something specifically called polyvagal theory. I'm also
Mm.
studying how the hormones are impacted, the adrenaline, the cortisol, and when we experience trauma. So if a person is drinking and they're unaware of even their own experiences with trauma and how the environments that they need to be, we're not even talking about alcohol yet. We're just talking about an individual who is unaware of how the external factors impact their internal livelihood. So when we add alcohol into that situation and the individual is not aware of what they need to feel safe, and then they may feel just the smallest amount immobilized by alcohol.
Wow.
We don't really know what that's going to do to that person's nervous system or how that person will react. So 200% into this conversation about the actual impacts alcohol has on our nervous system, and not from a hysterical place of alcohol's bad, you shouldn't drink it all, like blah blah blah. Like, no, not from there. I think that there is so much fruit in understanding the nuances and the intricacies. First of all, understanding that alcohol is going to impact every single individually differently, depending on genetics. So understanding that, because my downfall has always been trying to drink like my friends. My downfall has always been trying to drink like my friends. And once you understand that you are divinely made, which means you are uniquely made, and there is nobody out here with a genetic makeup like you approach everything differently, including alcohol.
Yeah. Yeah. And so yeah, I can say a bottle of wine is 5 servings,
Yeah.
and you can be done after 1 serving. You can be done after a half. And unfortunately, like this isn't necessarily something that can be taught. It's something that has to be practiced of
Yes.
mindfulness and
Yes.
mindfully drinking. So you say usually you finish a drink, and then you have a check-in with yourself. And me too, if I'm feeling a certain way, I might do that as well.
Yeah.
Or for me, I might have a time cutoff. If, it's just an evening and like, okay, we just opened a bottle after dinner, but I want to go to bed soon. So I will finish this glass, and at about 9 p.m., I'm going to say no more or whatever. And that's very individual for each person. And I want to be of support for all of those people. I want to introduce people to wine, and I'll have guests that are like, yes, absolutely. I would love a refill. I'm having a great time. I want to keep drinking. And I'll have guests where they'll do the tasting, or I've had guests where they just smelled it. They didn't even put the wine in their mouths. And because I just love wine as an experience, I'm not going to force anybody to drink. I'm not going to make you do something you don't want to do. But I just want to be there to introduce you to this drink, to this wine, to this experience, this cultural touchstone of this area or of this journey that we're kind of going on through a glass. So, yeah, that's really beautiful, everything you said. And for some people, alcohol is an absolute no because it is something that, either makes them incredibly sick, is not it like they have an allergy to, or they have an addiction to, and they have this disease that makes alcohol in any form incredibly unsafe, no matter what. And I'm mindful of that. And I have to be keenly aware of that as an alcohol professional. And it's not something I might talk about all the time, because I also don't want to be, kind of not a party pooper, but I don't also want to be reminding people of the dangers of alcohol when I'm trying to tell you how to enjoy it. Right. But it's something I want people to know that as alcohol professionals, it is something we are very aware of. It is something that we have to train in and understand before we can just start serving you and mixing up cocktails or popping bottles. So just know that
Absolutely.
we want you to have a good time, but we also are aware that this thing that we're providing you isn't always the safest thing.
Honestly, it's about the experience, like you said. And I'm a big believer that no matter what job we hold, we are working for our brothers and sisters on this planet. We are working for the experience of other people on this planet. So even you doing your job, you are doing your job as a sommelier from a place of cultivating an experience for individuals versus like wine because I like wine.
Yeah.
And I think that is beautiful, because when it becomes about the individual's experience for the person that you are trying to serve, it becomes so much less about the expectations of how you want them to experience it and what they're experiencing in real life, in real time, and how you fit into that in order to give them a positive experience. I think that's beautiful there. It is beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah. So in creating and providing a space for people to have an experience with wine in my work, I also wish to be a wine, not just a person who serves you wine. And in that, I'm also aware that taste is incredibly personal. And so I may tell you, I may educate you so hard on the wine, but if you don't like it, you don't like it. And that's fine. That's fine. You can be drinking one of the most expensive wines in the world, but if you don't like it when you drink it, then in your opinion, it's not a good wine. And that's fine. So I don't expect my guests to like everything that they try. And I do expect my guests to maybe have a favorite of the lineup. And I think that's great. I've even a waiter served a glass to someone and they didn't like it. So then I came back and said, what are you looking for? And she told me, and then I was able to give her something that she liked. And for me, I want my guests to have a good experience. I want them to enjoy the wine that they have. So yeah.
I love that. I love that. Your mic may have cut out at the very beginning of that. No, it's okay. You said that you want to be, and was it an educator?
A wine educator. Yeah.
Yes. I just want to make sure we get that. It's a good piece.
Sure.
Verity, what a conversation.
Yeah.
This was so good.
Nice.
This was so good. Okay. So before we end, I would like to ask you, is there anywhere on the World Wide Web that my listeners can find you and plug into your content?
Absolutely. Currently, I am on Instagram at Invino Verity. And I am working on my blog, my digital home right now. That will also be invinoverity.com. And it'll certainly be linked on my Instagram when that's up and live. So those are the two kind of places where you can find me now. Also, if you're interested more in just like my daily musings and my life as it is, and lots of memes about mental health, my personal Instagram is VerityEPH, and you are welcome to find me there.
Thank you so much for being on the podcast today. I really appreciate you. I really,
Thank you,
really
Dominique.
do. Thank you.
It was so much fun.
Thank you for educating us on wine, educating us on how to be mindful, and also encouraging us to maybe try something new.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's just have curiosity and an open mind.
Yes.
And don't be afraid of not liking something. Don't be afraid of maybe seeming like you don't know anything, because if you don't know anything, that's fine.
How will you learn?
That's fine. How else do you learn? And the best way to learn more about wine is to drink more of it. So that's fun.
That part. Thank you so much for coming on the show today, Verity. I hope that you find a little more peace, please. Speak with you soon. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of More Peace, Please. I do hope that you enjoyed it. Want to keep up with me? Well, that's a coincidence. I want to keep up with you too, boo. Best way to stay in the know is to follow me on Substack at Brown and Bindi. You can find me under the same handle on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and Snapchat. Until next time, remember to seek more peace, please.